With the season imminent, Aston Villa is in the midst of some serious housekeeping which could have major implications on our ability to bring in those final ingredients before September 1st. Presented by the family-founded, Birmingham-based, vehemently Villa 24/7 services, let's talk about impending exits. Hello from the parlor, and it appears as though Jacob Ramsey's time with his boyhood football club is coming to a close. And of course, the purchasing team is here on Saturday, but I've rarely seen the Villa fan base so evenly divided over a sale like this, which means it's worth talking about, and Ramsey may not be the only one heading for the exits, which would give us some purchasing power in the final 2 weeks of the window. First thing about Jacob Ramsey, from everything I've heard, is that he is an absolutely smashing lad, and a lot of the credit, of course, goes to his parents, but also to Aston Villa Football Club. I mean, he's been with us since he was just a wee man, and I deeply appreciate class and clubs that prioritize producing good people as well as good footballers. And the other thing about this sale that makes it easier to do is that it's pure profit. We are not sharing the proceeds with any other club or academy. There seems to be two very differing perceptions over this deal. One, Jacob Ramsey rejected us, and two, the club did not value JJ based on the initial contract offer, and we'll never know the truth of the matter, but it is the club that establishes the bargaining with the initial offer, which apparently has been on the table for 6 months, and if the player and the agent feel that offer isn't worthwhile, they start looking elsewhere, and that proves that the club and Unai Emery has undervalued him. Now, he's making $70K per week with 2 years left on the deal. What I would love to know is what Aston Villa's offer was in terms of an increase, and then, of course, who the agent feels is a comparable player to bargain or leverage against. The contract extension offer ensures that the player's value doesn't start to depreciate as the contract begins to wind down. So this was a strategic move by the club that forces the agent to start shopping around and seeing what else is out there, but that helps him also try to leverage some of the terms up, and that creates a sense of urgency. And lo and behold, in the last few weeks and months, West Ham was supposedly interested, and then Newcastle came along, and Newcastle is a club that's been spurned by a few players already this summer. And if I'm looking at this with a completely emotionless viewpoint, we've had an absolute blinder here. Given that JJ was a homegrown player and one of our own, I could see how selling him might be considered unpopular among some fans. So extending a contract offer kind of looks like a good PR move. I also found it interesting that suddenly the fact that it's been on the table for 6 months was floated to the public through the media. And I could do an entire show about the ethics of sports journalism and having media members peddle information that is favorable to a club, but I'm going to save that for another day. If we're confronting the cold, hard facts, Jacob Ramsey has never returned to the kind of player he was before all the metatarsal problems, and I was desperate for him to succeed with us for obvious reasons. But Morgan Rogers can play on the left-hand side. So can Yvan Gaisson. So could Leandro Trossard, if you believe the links. And by the way, I would take him in a heartbeat. And when you look at some of the other business we've done with Academy graduates, Cameron Archer, Jaden Philogene, Carney Chukwuemeka, Omari Kellerman, we've done some fantastic business in that regard. All I'm going to say is fare thee well, Jacob, and I hope you have unbelievable success. Except against us. While Aston Villa is doing significant maintenance on its squad, this show's title sponsor, 24/7 Services, is providing maintenance all up and down the country. And one thing I really noticed during my viewer predictions show was the sheer breadth, size, and scale of the Aston Villa fan base. I mean, you could say that Villa Nation is an economy all on its own. And if I was living in B6 and I had the choice of using a business that either was or wasn't supporting Aston Villa, guess who I would choose? In fact, wouldn't it be a great idea to have a business directory made up of Aston Villa supporters? One of the things I really appreciate about Birmingham, and I could kind of feel it when I was there, is there's always been this tradition and culture of invention, innovation, entrepreneurship, wanting to build something unique and special, and an emphasis put on quality. I mean, that's the basis on which Aston Villa was founded, and it's the basis on which 24/7 Services is founded. And when you use them for your projects, you are supporting this show. Holy Trinity Show viewers have always received preferential quotes. This year, I've been given the green light to say so, and you'll find their contact details in the description. Meanwhile, Leon Bailey appears to be the subject of a bidding war between SC Roma and Besiktas in Turkey, if you believe the links. If we got anything close to the 30 million that we paid for him in 2021, utterly astonishing business. Even at 25, this is a guy who's earning 120K per week. And for a player on the periphery, that's just too much for a club in the SCR situation we're in. When I hear fans talking about Leon Bailey, the common themes are injury issues, and also you never know what you're going to get from week to week. And those are the same frustrations, I'm sure, for the manager who expects consistency. We now have Yvan Gaisson who could play on the right-hand side. Malen can play there. Rogers can play there. Tielemans and McGinn could play there depending on the opponent. I'm sure the club wanted to make this move earlier in the window, but it is a no-brainer. I say again, fare thee well, Leon Bailey, and thank you for providing a couple of fantastic moments during your 4-year tenure. And then Alex Moreno on only 35K per week, apparently, the subject of interest from several clubs, and I'd be curious to know how Monchi's trying to play this one out, maybe creating a little bit of urgency, knowing that there are numerous clubs looking for his services on that ticket, and he's young enough and a very handy player, and that there were indications he would prefer a move back to Spain. And the last big one for me would be trying to shed Leander Den Donker's 75K per week off the books. He's currently training with the U21s. How demoralizing would that be? There has been a link with Ajax. Please be true, because if you have to eat his contract the way we did with Phil Coutinho, that doesn't help the SCR situation much, because you still have to outlay for that. But even if you did a no-fee deal and just ask the accepting club to take on the last year of that contract, perfect. On the incoming rumor front, the Marco Asensio returning to Villa links are gaining traction. I thought for sure he was already house hunting in Turkey, but like the Jacob Ramsey exit, this one seems to divide the fan base right down the middle. Now, the impression I was left with was a little bit Phil Coutinho-esque. Came in with a bang, kind of fizzled out at the end. I spoke with a good friend and viewer of this show, Dirk Washington, who is at Villa Park always, and he made a good point. We have never seen a player with this kind of creative flair, and one that has the ability to navigate low blocks. I love analogies, so I'll use a food one. We all know that Unai Emery is from Basque country, where cuisine is almost as important as the air that you breathe, and there are a lot of culinary influences in that region, including French, because they're right there, and they have some of the greatest ingredients in the world. Well, Unai Emery is the head chef of our operations. He also owns a restaurant in Valencia. And if he thinks that Marco Asensio is that one missing ingredient that makes our recipe more complex, then I trust him unconditionally. The judgment, however, will come from how expensive that specific ingredient is. Asensio is on 241K per week, and supposedly our offer is a 3-year deal. At 29 years of age, turning 30 in January, if he were to cut his wages in half, and the transfer fee was reasonable, rumored in the 13 million euro range, well then I think this makes sense. But he's not going back to PSG, and that wage packet is what's preventing him from moving on. We simply cannot pay those kinds of wages for a 29-year-old. Outgoings, of course, have major ramifications on potential incomings before the window shuts, and if we're talking about 60 million or more for Ramsey and Bailey, we get to bank that in this fiscal all at once right now, whereas incomings, we get to amortize over a maximum 5 years. So in the case of Yvan Gaisson, we're amortizing his wages and salary at somewhere around 7 million plus per year. I see Monchi taking pelters all the time, and I simply do not understand it given the situation we're in, because you have to be nimble in the market. You have to seize opportunity and find it where other people are not looking. That is done quietly and behind the scenes with a lot of hard work. And I'm telling you right now, there will be a couple of clubs that will deeply regret the amount of money they've spent on a couple of players this past window because the spending has been outrageous. Are you starting to get those anticipatory butterflies in your stomach as kickoff nears on Saturday? I haven't had them like this for a long time. Maybe it's because we're playing at home for the first time in eons to start a season. I'm not looking forward to the 4:30 a.m. kickoff my time, but I am looking forward to talking about actual football. And don't forget, Samir's Speaker's Corner just outside the McGregor statue. Until then, up the mighty Villa.